Thanks for joining us today. Hope you're having a great session here at CCW. Today we are very excited to talk to you all about how you can leverage outbound communications to drive customer service. And my name is Kishore Kodumali. I'm a senior go-to-market specialist at AWS. And I'm joined today by my colleague Anjan Mukherjee. He's a senior product manager at AWS. So what I like to start off with is to share some market data around proactive communications. So in the last 2 years, the events within the last 2 years have really accelerated the need for service leaders to really rethink how to strategize their customer service strategies. So Gartner research reveals that a lot of organizations still operate in a very reactive manner at a very transaction level, and a lot of times they require their end customers to really exert significant effort as they navigate from one channel to another. And as you can imagine, a lot of times this results in a very poor customer experience, low self-service containment, and a lot of times it has an increase in the inbound call volumes as well. And Gartner had outlined 6 key capabilities to drive dynamic customer experience. The first one being proactive customer care. And what this is essentially the ability for organizations to send outbound messages proactively to address their customer needs. And the other capabilities that Gartner has outlined that you see on the slide here are really around the ability to connect and orchestrate customer journeys across multiple channels. So when a customer is switching from one channel to another, they don't have to start all over again. Again, doing all this while keeping those customer conversations contextual and personalized to that specific customer. Now, specifically around outbound proactive care, Gartner's research reveals that customers who had proactive customer care view those interactions more favorably. And if you look at the chart on this slide, there are 4 metrics Gartner looked at, and these are metrics organizations use to track customer loyalty, such as CSAT, Net Promoter Score, Customer Efficiency Score, and a Value Enhancement Score. And what Gartner found is that there is at least a 1-point increase when you compare proactive customer care versus reactive customer care. And what this shows that is customers view organizations that provide the proactive customer care with greater appreciation and value. And also research shows that there is a direct link between customer loyalty and business profitability. So you can imagine why proactive customer outbound engagement has a huge impact on the bottom line for a lot of enterprises. And in fact, Gartner predicts that by 2025, the number of outbound interactions will outnumber the number of inbound interactions. And again, this should not be a surprise given some of the data points we just saw around the impact of proactive customer care. Now, what I want to switch now is to the use cases that we can address using outbound communications. So if you look at a customer's life cycle journey, there are a number of touch points, customer touch points, where you could have use cases that could be addressed using outbound communications, right from an awareness stage all the way to customer loyalty. For example, at an awareness stage, you could have notifications around sales and marketing, all the way to customer onboarding notifications and appointment reminders. Again, as an organization, you don't want to waste your time and money on no-shows. So appointment reminders is a great use case to help address that pain point. And we also see payment reminders, fraud alerts is another classic use case. And in the utility industry, what we have seen is outage notifications is another use case that could be addressed using proactive outbound communications. Debt collections is another one that we hear a lot from our customers using outbound communications to address collections. And then if you look at all the way on the loyalty side of things, you have customer retention, notifications, customer surveys. My favorite one is on the loyalty use case, where I get this text message saying, you need to make one more purchase to have a free coffee. And I can tell you 9 out of the 10 times, I actually make that purchase to enjoy that free coffee. So it really works, in my case at least. But the point I want to make here is, depending on where the customer is in this life cycle, and based on the industry or the vertical, be it retail or financial or healthcare, there are different use cases that could be addressed using proactive outbound communications. Now, at Amazon, we are very focused on our customers, and we work backwards from our customers' requirements to build product features. And what we heard from our customers are 3 main areas where they had challenges when it comes to outbound communications. The first area of challenge that we heard from our customers is that they're challenged with creating or designing these proactive strategies to meet their customer preferences. So today, customers have a lot of different channel preferences on how and when they want to be connected to it, contacted by an enterprise. And yet, we've seen organizations that are challenged with meeting these requirements as part of their proactive customer strategies. The second area that we heard from our customers as a pain point is that typically they have multiple different applications and tools that they require their agents to use to address inbound versus outbound channels. For example, they have a different application to handle emails versus chat transactions or voice transactions. And integrating these different tools and applications is very costly and time-consuming. And what we heard from our customers is a lot of times it lacks the flexibility, and it's very difficult to scale to high volumes. So, and then the final pain point that, again, we heard what our customers tell us is around dialing optimization. This is really around the ability to connect an agent to a live customer, so the agent's productivity is improved. And we've heard from our customers that that's another area of challenge for them. And to address these challenges, we have built Amazon Connect outbound campaigns. Again, we announced the general availability of the service a couple of days back. It's an ML-powered outbound communication service that helps companies to contact millions of customers in a very cost-effective way. So I'm going to turn this over to Anjan to really talk about how we are using outbound campaigns to address some of these challenges that I just explained here.
Thanks, Kishore. And thank you, folks, for being here. Well, I'm the guy standing between you and the networking event and happy hour or what have you. So I'm going to try and make this as you're worth your time. So when we knew this was coming, we obviously didn't want to go first, but we didn't want to go last either. But hey, c'est la vie. It is what it is, so we are going to make the best we can out of the time we have together. So Kishore spoke really well about the problems that we set out to solve, what the challenges are in the marketplace, and frankly, what the opportunity is that Amazon Connect had to offer for our customers. So Amazon Connect outbound campaigns sets out to solve some of these core pain points. First of all is cross-channel communications at scale. So this kind of touches to that proactive nature and the cross-channel nature. So we offer these high-volume communications both across voice, SMS, and email. So you can connect with your customers, your endpoints across different channels based on what their preference is. That's number one. Second is improving agent productivities. And we have heard this number of times throughout the presentations you've heard, outside the premises of these walls, and from AWS also. So we're going to touch upon that a little later. Compliance is one area I'm going to spend some time on. Yes, I might put some of you guys to sleep, but it's necessary for this particular tool to talk about compliance. Kishore talked about elimination of the third-party integrations, and because you have an outbound capability, you now have within Connect the ability to blend your inbound, outbound contact centers into one cohesive, natively available application. And last but not the least, our ability to scale to hundreds to millions of calls in a day, depending on how you want it. And then I'm going to touch a little bit about pricing. So we are, as you have come to expect from Amazon and AWS, we are a pay-as-you-go service. So you pay for what you use. So there are no long-term fees. There are no commitments to be made. So it's easy to work with us. So those are some of those key features, key attributes that we're going to talk about. We're going to also talk about a few customer anecdotes and a few use cases where we've seen this product be pretty successful for some of those customers. And then we're going to end with ways that you can use this product. So diving a little deeper into how you can create these multi-channel campaigns. There are 6 steps. I'm sure you are reading, some of you are taking pictures, which is amazing. But it feels very intuitive. So you essentially first create a segment. You obviously need a list of who you want to go contact. So that's your segment creation. You have some capabilities of using a CSV file if you so choose, or you can point the tool to an S3 bucket, an AWS S3 bucket, so you can pick your list from there. There are capabilities of filtering. If you don't want to call certain numbers, you can pick another segment that you compare against. You can use that as an exception segment. So you have your segment. Moving on to picking a channel. Here is where the beauty of the tool comes in. You could pick one channel, either voice and make a phone call, or an SMS, or an email, or you could create some multi-channel journeys. Kishore talked about the example where he receives an SMS, and we're going to go through one of those use cases where you send an SMS first, letting them know that somebody's going to call them about their account, and we see pretty high success rates when we blend channels. Content is the next step. So what kind of a message are you going to send them when you actually reach out to those endpoints? So that's your next step. If you are sending a text message, you have templates to pick from. If you're sending an email, you have templates to pick from. Or if you are contacting the customer via a dialer, then you have a different set of journeys that you can manage there. The contact strategy is where we get into some of those compliance-related features. So some states have mandates to not call a customer during certain times of the day. Like, we don't want a random call to show up at like 9 in the evening when we are spending time with the family. So what are those quiet times that you don't want to contact your customer? So you can specify some of those parameters, and we'll get to more of that. And then step 5 is the process, like how do you execute that mechanism? So we'll talk more about that a little later. And then finally, how well did you do? Did the rubber hit the road? So this is where measurement comes in. So we offer metrics and events and timestamps across the different aspects of our journey to showcase how the campaign performed, how the dialer performed, so that you know how well your tool actually met the objectives you set out to achieve. A couple of points on how you improve agent productivity. So the voice dialer that we offer has 2 modes out of the box. One is progressive, which simply means the dialer will make a call only when an agent is available. So you use this when customer satisfaction, customer experience is paramount. So you don't want to call and the customer hears dead air. The second one is predictive, where we use an algorithm to have the dialer predict the availability of the agent. So there's an algorithm that we have behind the scenes that takes into account the availability of an agent, what the average handle time is, and what the connect rates are, to then predict the availability of the agent and call ahead, so that by the time the agents become available in a queue, the call is already waiting. So this is one way we use to maximize agent productivity. The other one we actually hear a lot of positive feedback about is the use of an ML-powered answering machine detection. So we have mechanisms in place to identify whether when a voice call is made, whoever answers is a voicemail, or whether it's a live person. And what we have done is we've introduced a new flow block. For those of you who are aware of how the flows work, so the check call progress block has these branches or responses. So you can design the customer experience based on how you want each one of these branches to behave. So for instance, if a call was answered by a live person, you could drop the call to an agent or to a bot or play a message. Same thing if there's a voicemail with a beep or with no beep. And then the catch-all is, for whatever reason it was, the detection could not work successfully, or there was some kind of an error, you can decide how you want the disposition to be. So customers tell us that using this capability significantly improves agent productivity in the tens of hundreds of percentage points versus if this wasn't. So as I was thinking about the compliance section, I was thinking about what kind of a joke can I have to introduce this section, because we are getting into some less entertaining part of the presentation. So I did my research, and what I found was that compliance isn't something to joke about. Certainly not from people like me who deal with compliance, who have no personality and very little, if at all, any sense of humor. So I was like, well, let's just keep it aside and just go and talk about the features. Anywho, well, that was my attempt at late afternoon humor. So several ways that we deal with compliance. Well, deal with compliance. We support compliance within the tool. So within the US, many of you know that for certain use cases, the Telecom Consumer Protection Act, TCPA, as we fondly know it, in the UK, Office of Communications, Ofcom, Australia has the Australian Consumer Law. So these regulations exist, again, for the protection of consumers, just so that we prevent them from being harassed. For instance, we talked about quiet times and such. So it's not, we are acutely aware that our customers require tools that we make to offer such compliance to be maintained, to support such compliance. At the same time, for those of you who have worked with Amazon and AWS, compliance is a shared responsibility. So as much as the tools we build support compliance, it is also beholden on the customer to use the tool for a compliant workload. So that's the shared responsibility model that we espouse and we expect. So improving agent connect time so that the end customer can be connected to an agent as quickly as possible. Ensuring that we respect time zones when we dial phone numbers. Certain state laws have those requirements. Measurement, some of those metrics are very important so that companies can know what percentage of contacts actually meet the bar of those requirements. Ensuring that there are ways to scrub call lists based on do not call regulations or do not call registries. So those are important. And the last one being limits on how many times a customer can be called. So those are some of those key aspects that the product supports out of the box. I'll go line by line into each one of those. No, I won't. So the key thing here is on an outbound side, abandonment rate metric is one of those things which is pretty important. And many of you probably know this is the percentage of calls that could not be connected to an agent in 2 seconds or less for a live customer after they finished their greetings. So all of these points are like extremely important. Yeah, I know I had to kind of read up a whole bunch I'm kind of getting much better at some of these regulations myself. So what we have done is we have the capability to identify and detect exact timestamps of when a customer says, hello, this is Anjan. So we know when they started their salutation, when they started their greeting, and when they ended their greeting. And we also expose when the agent was connected. So a company can use these timestamps to create their metrics and then decide how to slow down or speed up their campaigns based on some of these metrics. These are real time, they get generated. So that's something that we offer out of the box. The external do not call checks is another one which customers often ask for, is especially how to scrub call lists based on a federally created do not call list, or a company may have their own do not call lists they want to make sure that they adhere to. So we have capabilities out of the box, either to, like I said, create a segment of do not call lists and then you scrub your call list against those segments, or have an API that would connect to a third-party source that you'd want to scrub your call lists. The max attempts is the other one that we talked about. Like, how many times can you contact your customers? So we have a few configurations out there. So number one is you can set the limits on how many times per day you could contact your customer, your endpoint. You can set redial limits based on the journeys that you have, like a journey or multiple journeys that you specify. Or you can have a rolling average, or I should say a rolling limit on how many attempts over X number of days that you want to limit the calls. So those are, again, things that we offer out of the box, which allow you to comply with some of the regulations that you have. I have one more. So how many compliance officers do you need to change a light bulb? Well, you're saying, okay, so I got the 10-minute mark, sorry, okay. So you need 3, but I better answer because I got to speed up. You need 3. So one actually changes the light bulb, the second checks if the light bulb was changed, and the third checks the checker and then files a report. So, all right, enough, okay. So customer anecdotes, like this is so now we got to get into like what some of our customers liked about this product. So USAN is one of our partners who implemented outbound campaigns for a top automotive manufacturer for use cases of collections, lease payment reminders, and notifications. Very, like one of our largest customers and they kind of tested our system, like everything that we talked about in terms of scalability and all that, these guys tested that out. So we know it works. So USAN was one. Accenture worked with another one of their customers, especially on the Medicaid side, where their customer was having. They had to spend a lot of time making manual calls. Their agents had to spend a lot of time making manual calls. And using outbound campaigns, they were able to significantly reduce the workload that these customers had, or that the agents had to make these calls. So that was another one of those success stories. And the last one, again, was with Scott Credit Union, with TechChoice as their partner. Once again, a very quick implementation. The quick implementation is not something that's very is not a Amazon outbound campaigns thing. It's something that is across the board for AWS products. For those of you guys who were there for the cases presentation, we do the same thing there. It's very quick, easy to set up and go. Very similar here. So from the start to finish, the implementation is super fast. So that's one of those other things that that the product was able to deliver, in addition to some of the other efficiencies we talked about. Getting to the end of the slides. So this is our pricing page in terms of what the costs are in terms of our voice charges, the telephony charges. But the main thing is it's pay-as-you-go pricing, like I alluded to. So you literally pay for what you use. If you go to our website, our pricing page, you will get all this information and a lot more. So this is an abridged version. We are available in the regions of US West, US East, Europe, London, and Asia Pacific. But as many of you know, on the outbound side, it's not enough for us to just say we are available in regions. We have to be specific about the countries, because every country has certain restrictions of outbound calling. So I have to say that, okay, we are available in the US, UK, Australia, and New Zealand countries. And with plans to grow even more. So I'm going to end with this slide, which I'm sure you guys have seen before. Like when you want to get started, it's fairly straightforward. We have a dedicated page. That's the middle section. You can go study on what are some of our core features. And then of course, as I'm going to borrow a statement my colleague Edgar just said earlier, is our documentation is something we take pride in, just to make sure that you guys have good exposure from how our APIs work, how our UI works. So would recommend you go check it out. That's the end of my presentation. So I would love to take questions if you guys have any.